that we want to look at tonight is mental health in esports. Because as I said, this is one of the areas that doesn't get discussed enough. It's something where, this is a high pressure industry. It's fast paced. It can lead to kind of problematic habits and lifestyles for people who are involved in it. I think in kind of every element of esports. So for you, what do you think some of the key issues are, and how should we be addressing them?
Right, so this comes from different angles, whether I come from a streamer with high pressure on views and trying to keep up with analytics, or if I'm trying to, run Overworld, which, by the way, I'm very fortunate to have a good team that do a lot of the behind the scenes. I don't teach any of the education stuff. I just fund it through doing the streaming and whatnot, and part of it a little bit here and there. But for being straight up direct, mental health in esports, are we doing enough? No, not really. And that's actually because we're in its embryonic stage, where it's at the very beginning in a way, right? You've got so many different governing bodies that are like tapping into esports, but it's very much like either very cash grab orientated, or it's gone very franchise orientated, and there's no support network. There's there's no real area where, for example, sports athletes, they will have a sports psychologist attached to them. They'll have ways to teach them how to have coping mechanisms. For example, if you're a streamer or a pro athlete, you deal with a massive form of harassment through trolls and people trying to put you down online. It's people that might be able to try and attack your business through putting a dislike, or trying to write negative comments that can throw you off. You could be in the middle of a Call of Duty tournament and you can get stream sniped, where people are trying to follow you in game and destroy you off tournaments. You've got so much going in there where there is no consequences as well. If people are cheating, or if people are, trying to get the leg up on their competition. So the way I look at it is that you've got esports as a whole, where I feel like there needs to be a lot more focus on rewarding, needs to be more social interactions, whether it be like this, which is good. I love doing things like this. It really boosts up my morale and gets to meet different types of talent. And it's a great way for my mental health, gives value. And I think, what is a community? I could go on for quite a bit about this, as you could probably tell, but I do believe there is a lot of psychological challenges and stress factors that have to be implemented and kind of a little bit copied from how we do things in the pro athlete area in the world. There you go.
I mean, Eunice, you're working with people who are new entrants to the industry. They're some of the people that you come across. So for you, what do you think are the kind of key bits of advice you'd give people, or the key considerations they should be thinking about in regards to protecting their mental health?
Okay, this is a really good question. If
Luke, I'm going to stop you right there, if that's okay. Sorry, It was a question for Eunice. I don't know.
Eunice, it's yours. Go for it.
Yeah. No problem. We're all welcome to chime in. And I believe mental health is incredibly important in esports. And like Luke was saying, we just don't talk about it enough. Not only because, it is an embryonic stage that esports is in, but, it's just a human thing to not want to admit weakness, or whatever society thinks it is, right? You don't necessarily see a lot of successful people go out and say, hey, they were burned out, or hey, they failed in this and that. And it's becoming a sign of strength, which it is. It's becoming a conversation topic of strength. But previous to this, it was, at least to these times, I would say it was never really common. And what I truly believe, and what I've learned through the last 10 years in esports, is that mental health is better when you can prevent it and when you can talk about it. And so with Enlight, our community is completely curated to people who are all in the same stages of the career. They're all looking for this community, this social support, this encouragement for small wins in their career journey, or even big wins. And for me, learning is not necessarily just a book smart sort of thing where you're reading a textbook or listening to someone's knowledge. That's obviously important to make that accessible, but it's important to have the encouragement that continues your motivation and continues your sort of path and discipline, right? Because passion will burn out at some point. The sort of discipline just needs that kind of encouragement to continue. So that's the coaching, and the life coaching is a huge part of the Enlight programming that I put in.
Rich, what for you can companies do? You know, what kind of initiatives, what kind of support would you want to see from companies to feel confident that they were doing what they could to support mental health?
Yeah, I think the good thing, as has been mentioned, is that one of the first things I wrote down when I was preparing for tonight was like, at least it is kind of being talked about a little bit. I think I follow exclusively an esports audience on my social media, and it's journalists and professionals, and not necessarily players, but the people that work behind the scenes more often. And I think because of the pandemic in particular, I am seeing a lot more conversations around mental health and the grind culture and what can we do to improve things. I think a lot of the onus is on the companies, but again, it comes back to what Luke said at the beginning about the embryonic stages, that so many companies are really small startups. Like, we are now at 13 people, as I said in the intro, but we were a company of 4 or 5 people for the first 2 years of our existence, and we didn't have an HR department or a diversity officer or somebody to look after the mental health of the team. And it was kind of our collective responsibility as the people who run the company, like me and my brother, to look after the staff and to try and do things a little bit differently. So I think at the basic level, the problem that we have is that so many companies are running in kind of this grind startup culture where people are expected just to work non-stop. And I'm sure all of us here have experienced that in professional lives before. And you want to be that when we were able to go in the office, you want to be one of the first people to turn up at the office, and you want to be one of the last people to leave. That seems to be like a startup culture thing, not just an esports thing, because I came from a professional sports startup background, and it was very much the same in the football industry, where if you're a young person in particular who's trying to make a name for him or herself, you're supposed to be there before anybody else is. You leave, but after everybody else. If you leave early, you can guarantee you're going to get some kind of snarky comments from your line manager or somebody else in the team. And I think a lot of that transfers over. So what we do at Hitmarker, and what I would love to see more companies do, is, like, if we can, we try and hire employees rather than freelancers over here in the UK, so they've got some kind of contractual rights. It costs us more as a company, and we don't have the biggest budget in the world, but I think at the base level, giving people like paid time off, giving people set working hours, and not just kind of expecting them to be available for you 24/7 is a good thing. So we, this year in particular, we always used to run like 364 days a year, which I think, again, maybe wasn't the best thing for the first 3 years of the company's life. We have now kind of started to close down our office over Christmas and New Year completely, and like just stop posting to the platform to give people a full 2-week break. We do not work weekends at all anymore. We used to do like an on and off rota where people would have to work a Saturday, Sunday, and then they wouldn't have to again. We've got rid of weekend work, and it's not as terrifying as I thought. Like, you don't lose your whole audience because you don't do stuff on a weekend. Who knew that? But maybe I didn't know that for the first 2 years. And we do 7-hour days, which I think a lot of people roll their eyes at, and they're like, yeah, really? But we start at 10 and finish at 5, and we tell all of the employees, especially at the moment, like, put your Slack on do not disturb after those hours. You shouldn't be getting message outside of working hours. And people might be watching this thinking, like, that's so basic, but I think in terms of just the base level of respecting people's mental health as an employee or a worker, come to work to do work, give your best, but then respect that person's time outside of that. And at the base level, I think if more people did that, we'd have a much happier community.
I mean, absolutely. I just want to acknowledge some of the things that you